Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. I know how hard you work as a nonprofit professional, what it means to take time out of your day for education. Thank you. I appreciate it very, very much. My name is Ronald. I'll be your webinar host. Before we get into everything, I want to share a bit about this webinar. This webinar is what's called a hybrid webinar. The presentation you are seeing and hearing is recorded, but if you are attending this webinar in one of my scheduled sessions, then I am live in the chat room on the right to answer any questions you have as you watch. Feel free to submit any question you have anytime throughout the presentation. Also, if you have to step away for a minute or leave early, don't worry. I'll follow up with all attendees with a replay video that you can watch on demand. The goal for this presentation today is to present email marketing tips and tricks to engage donors, how to get more results out of the emails you are sending to your constituents. First, here's the obligatory About Me slide so you'll know who you're chatting with today. My name is Ronald Pruitt. I'm the president and founder of For a Good Cause. I've been helping nonprofits build websites and raise money online for over 20 years. My company, For a Good Cause, is an easy-to-use and effective online fundraising platform for small to mid-sized nonprofits. You can check us out at foragoodcause.com. Here is what we'll be up to today. We're going to work our way through tips and tricks to help you get more engagement out of your email marketing. If you stick around to the end of the presentation, which I hope you will, I'll have a free resource for you, our email marketing calendar template that will help you plan out your email marketing throughout the year. Plus some links to email examples that can help you inspire your communications. All throughout the presentation, I'll drop some hyperlinks and other things that you can bookmark to get more on this topic. Take it home for homework, so to speak. As we go along, if you have questions, post them in the chat. Again, if this is one of our scheduled sessions for this webinar, then I'm in there available to answer them. If I don't get to your question, I will certainly follow up with you after. If you're watching this later as strictly as a recording and have questions, I'll give my contact info at the end of the presentation. Feel free to send me any question that you have. Ready? Let's get into it. Now, if you're in this webinar, you probably understand how important email is to your fundraising, to your donor retention, to all aspects of growing your nonprofit. It is one of the most effective and budget-friendly communication tools you have at your disposal. It certainly can pay off for you. In 2019, email messaging accounted for 16% of all online revenue for nonprofits. Sending great emails to engage subscribers helps you earn more donations and retain those donors that are giving to you. So let's start by looking at what you want your subscribers to do. What do we mean by email engagement? I think this is probably a no-brainer, but you want those receiving your emails to take some type of action. It's not enough for your emails just to sit idly by in their inbox. You need them to open the email. You need them to read your copy. You need them to click the link to your call to action. Then most importantly, you need them to be compelled to follow through and complete that action. That call to action might be to donate or complete a survey, watch a video, read a blog post, etc. Whatever the goal of your email is, that's where you want to get your reader to. So we're going to go over some tips that hopefully are going to improve each of these steps in this engagement process. Now I'm about to show you some benchmarks so that you can get a sense of what is typical in the nonprofit sector for email engagement. Before I do that, I'd love to have you share what's typical for your nonprofit with the other live attendees. I'm going to drop a couple of polls that you can answer in the chat window. That way, other folks that are attending can see your responses, not only, benchmarks against these national stats that I'm going to show you, but against other nonprofits just like them that are attending this webinar. So I'm going to ask you how many emails you're sending to your supporters each month, what's typical for you, and then what's a typical open rate for your emails. Hopefully you're tracking that and have a sense of how many people that get your emails are actually opening them up to take a look. So take a moment to answer those in the chat window so those other attendees can benchmark themselves against what you're doing. I'll then show you some national stats to help you benchmark yourself against the broader nonprofit sector. I'll give you a moment to respond to that. Thank you very much. Okay. It's always good to know how well you are doing against the rest of the nonprofit sector. It's great to get a sense of how other nonprofits are using email, what a typical level of engagement is. So let's look at some numbers. These numbers are from the M&R Benchmarks 2020. It's a study of nonprofits across sectors and their fundraising and how their use of technology intersects with their fundraising. So how much email is being sent? Nonprofits sent an average of 50 email messages per subscriber in 2019. That's close to once a week, but it certainly doesn't mean you're sending email, one per week. You may have fundraising campaigns where you are sending 2 or 3 in a day, for example. If you're sending those in burst. You're probably also sending different emails to different segments of your list, so not everyone might get 50 messages here. In general, I like these benchmarks. I typically advise a nonprofit to send more email than you think you should. So if you're hitting some segment of your list once a week, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Perfectly reasonable. So what type of responses, were nonprofits in this survey getting? They specifically had statistics on the fundraising emails. So they were seeing open rates around 17%, click-through rates around 0.56%. Of those that clicked and got themselves to a donation or fundraising page, 11% of those would actually go forward, with the donation. You can kind of see this is hard work to get this engagement, especially clicks and donations that are coming from your fundraising emails. It's very hard work. So I'm certainly glad you're here. We can go over some tips and tricks to hopefully get your numbers a little higher than this. You see the overall response rate is around 0.05%, unsubscribe rate around 0.19%. How does that translate into dollars for nonprofits in this survey? For every 1,000 fundraising messages that were sent out, nonprofits generated $45 in revenue. So compare that to maybe the size of your list. Think about how many emails that you send out per month, per year. How could that translate into revenue for you? If you're kind of an average nonprofit like we see here. So let's get to those tips. Let's see if we can get these rates a little better for you. Our first tip to getting better engagement is putting the right people on your email list. People who are more interested in your cause are more likely to take action on your behalf. Please understand the quality of your email list is always more important than the quantity. So getting the right people means growing your list organically, signing up subscribers that know you or want to know you. You can do this through your website, through social media channels, through your events, through personal networking. These are folks that are reaching out to you in some way investigating who you are. Maybe you're already connected to you in some way, maybe through your social media channels, maybe through personal connections, that type of thing. You need to convert these people into email subscribers. It's a great first step before you can later turn them into donors or volunteers or board members. This is not going to be easy work. It can take a long time to build up an email list. So be patient, keep working at it. One of the places that you're gonna focus on is your website. So this is a good example of a website sign-up page. This is from Charity Water. I like that they keep their form very simple. They're only taking name and email. It's a quick and easy form with minimal fields, but certainly the collection of name is important. It can help engagement later. We'll talk about this, as people like to be addressed by name. I like that they spell out exactly what you're going to be getting if you join this list. They even give you just a little image of a sample email. Understanding what you're going to get before you sign up, that helps set expectations. That helps sign up the right people, those that want that exact content. Now, one way that Charity Water could improve this particular page, and I hope something you'll think about, is they could add an incentive to join the list, something that's called a lead generation offer. You offer new subscribers a download of exclusive content, maybe a special report that connects to your cause, maybe a download of 10 things you can do right now to help your cause, something of that. That gives more enticement to sign up. It can be something very useful in growing your list. Now, once they sign up for your list, you want to use double opt-in to make sure they really want to be there and that the email that they just submitted is a good one. You cannot get engagement from a bad email address. What is double opt-in? Double opt-in sends the subscriber a message to confirm their email address. Once they confirm their email, then they're on your list. Then you can start sending them content. That's a real engaged subscriber. That person should be more responsive to your emails. They're more likely to open and click your messages because they've made a very specific kind of two-step process to say, yes, I want to hear from you. It's also a way to keep your list clean. You're not getting bad emails. You've got nothing but engaged supporters there. If you're using an email marketing system like MailChimp, for example, you can easily configure your list for double opt-in. Typically it's just a box that you're checking off in your settings right there. Now I know double opt-in is very scary for organizations. Won't people forget to confirm? Yes, they definitely will. Maybe even 15% or so. In the short term, certainly single opt-in helps grow your list faster, but you can be growing it with bad emails or non-committal supporters. Over time, studies have shown that double opt-in pays off with more engagement and more conversions of your campaigns. That means more donations, more survey responses, all of that, because these people are more into what you're giving them. Also, there's a cost associated with having a bigger email list, so it's better to make sure that the people on yours actually want to be there. And I should mention here, if we're talking about growing your list organically, never, ever, under any circumstances, should you purchase an email list and start emailing those folks. You really don't know where the list came from. These folks don't know you, don't want to be on your list, and will quickly label you as a spammer getting your ability to send email shut down. All the major email marketing platforms, and I'll touch on those at the end of the presentation, they do not allow you to upload purchase lists. They do not allow you to send to these. If you do that, you're basically putting your email marketing to death. A disgruntled, disinterested subscriber is worse than no subscriber at all. So grow your list in a very natural and organic way. Our next tip is you'll want to get off on the right foot with your subscribers. Set expectations. Let them know that you'll be sending content that is valuable to them. It's the same principle, hopefully you're immediately sending a thank you email for an online donation. You want to make them feel great as soon as possible about the choice that they made to support you. It's the same thing with the folks you're sending email to. You can do this with a welcome series. This is something that's used in the business world quite a bit, but should be employed by nonprofits more, definitely. These are automated emails you set to fire out to new subscribers or new donors or new event attendees, someone who is new to your list in some way. A series is typically 2 or 3 automated emails, typically sent out about a week apart from each other. The goal for these emails can be different based on the audience, but they should lead to some sort of call to action. So let's say you've got a new email subscriber signed up through your website. You might send them 3 emails. First, thank them for subscribing. Let them know they'll get a few emails to introduce the nonprofit to them. This is your welcome series, and what to expect after that. Your call to action in this email might be to send them to a video or something that simply introduces the organization, what you do, and why it's important. The second email in the series could share a story of impact. More about your work, relevant testimonials from maybe somebody who went through your program or somebody who gives to you. The call to action might be to read a blog post, for example, about someone or something that you've helped. The third email in your series, that could be a fundraising email. End with asking for an online gift. You've learned about us. Would you now support us? Then this person will go into your regular schedule of emails. Try not to overlap those with your welcome series. Sometimes that happens, but these emails are meant to welcome the person to your list and make them feel great about being there. So a couple of examples here. Actually, let me start with this one. This is from a charity called Give Directly. It's a charity that makes direct cash payments to those in poverty. So they basically sent me some educational material to welcome me to their cause. Different links into different things that they're working on. Educational material can be a great start to an email relationship. Their call to action is to push me into their blog so I can just learn all about what they're working on. This is a welcome email that I got from Charity Water. They're basically sending me to a video, wanting me to watch a film that kind of is an overview of what they're all about. They're thanking me for being a subscriber, of course. One thing in their email that I think I would push off to a later email is this little call to action here to make a donation. I think for most nonprofits, it's good to use this first email as just an introduction, just so that you can kind of a soft sell, learn a little bit more about who they are. I mean, a welcome series is a great way to stand out from other nonprofits. I found it very difficult to find welcome email examples. Most times I sign up for a list, I don't get anything. Most nonprofits aren't sending a welcome, uh, not to mention a series. They're really missing out on a chance to immediately solidify a connection with a new subscriber. Um, you know, one also thing on a side note, as I'm starting to show these examples of emails, for these type of emails and all the emails that I'll talk about, you need to make it easy to unsubscribe. People are reassured to see that it's easy to leave the list. Let me go back to my example here. There's an unsubscribe link right there at the bottom here. If I see that, I understand it's easy to leave the list, which paradoxically means I don't actually feel like I have to, because I know I can do it at any time. So make sure that those are present in all the emails that you send out. So sending the right types of email is also important for good engagement. If you want opens and clicks, you'll want to send emails donors and other constituents actually want to receive. We've already mentioned welcome emails. What comes next? Well, obviously you're going to use email for soliciting donations, and we'll talk about that later in the presentation, but what else should you be sending? You don't want the only messages they get from you to be fundraising pitches. I'm a big believer in using email for donor retention. Throughout the year, you should send various types of emails to keep your donors just plain connected to your mission. You want to engage your supporters with content on email that reinforces that you appreciate them, that their support is important, that their donations are making a difference, and that you have additional opportunities for their involvement. Be consistent in when you deliver these and how often. Think back to that benchmark of once a week or so. I know many nonprofits will combine the types of content that you see on screen here into one monthly email newsletter. If that's all you can do, okay. But that can get a little crowded with many calls to action in one email. You will get better engagement, more clicks, for example, if you send a more focused emails around each of these concepts. For my subscribers here at For Good Cause, I send an email when I have new content to share. For me, that's a weekly blog posting or an event like a webinar. Another side note for you. I'd recommend any nonprofit start a blog. That can be where you house all of this type of content on your website that I'm talking about. Donor stories, beneficiary stories, event announcements, all this. Then when you send out your emails, you're just sending links back into the blog. This is also going to attract web traffic for you. It helps with your search engine optimization, so you'll look better in Google. So that's your second little side note for today. Let's look at some examples of this type of content, these donor retention emails. Hopefully some of these can spark your creativity. I think the most important emails you need to send to your supporters are thank you messages. Of course, every donor should get an email thank you immediately after making an online donation, but your organization needs to regularly send thank you messages to your whole list. You are simply thanking your supporters for the impact they are making on your mission. You can send these in connection with celebrations of victories you are having, milestones you are reaching, etc. The bottom line is that you're letting your donors know that they are the reason that you are succeeding. Let's look at a couple of examples sent during the pandemic. Here it is. So this is from the Wildlife Conservation Society, one of my favorite charities, one I give to. I love their headline here. It says, "I showed up for wildlife." Well, that makes me feel good. This email is all about spotlighting their work and thanking donors for making it possible. They even include a call to action button here to allow me to learn more about their work. Simple, straightforward, thank you, and showing me what I've helped to accomplish. This email here from Wellroot Family Services celebrates a successful virtual event and thanks those that participated. They also have a call to action here down at the bottom for you to pray with them. You want to add action opportunities whenever possible. I mean, we're looking for engagement, right? Even from just a simple thank you email. This one's great. Thanks them for all their participation. It reminds them where the money's going to go, what it's going to be used for, and they even send results to celebrate some of the victories there in this virtual 5K. I've seen many emails kind of just like that one, following fundraising campaigns. Those often add an additional chance to give. It's another kind of good call to action that you can use on those. You can send something out after the fundraising is over and say, "Hey, we reached our goal. If you didn't have a chance to give, you still can click here to make that donation." Next type is stories of impact. So, the success of your nonprofit is, that it's having, it's really not best conveyed in statistics or, like the number of persons fed or the dollar amount you raised for research or how many homeless you've sheltered. The impact your donors are having is best told through stories of individual people, places, and things. Telling a story of how your donor support helped save one person and the circumstances of that story, that's the kind of thing that builds an emotional connection between your cause and your donors. The stronger that connection, the more engagement that you're going to get out of all of your emails. These emails might lead the reader to a video or a blog post on your website, where they can read or watch the story. Certainly don't leave it all in the email. You can have part of the story in the email, finish the rest of the story online. That's going to draw them back into your website. While they're there, they've got opportunities for engagement from you, from donating or volunteering, whatever it is you have on your site. That's an opportunity for engagement there. Let's take a look at an example here. This again is from Wellroot Family Services. This is the story of one family that decided to adopt and how Wellroot made that possible. The call to action here is to read more on their blog. Again, part of the story here, part of the story on the website. This email here from a group called Vitamin Angels. This was a welcome email that I got. But what they stress in their welcome is for you to read the story, Jacqueline, somebody that they helped. So a story of impact that's a great introduction to your nonprofit for me to understand what it is you guys are all about. These emails, this type of email, also applies to something else that was on the previous slide about these why I gave stories. You in that case you're sending the story of a donor, somebody that gives to you, why they give, and why others should follow their lead. Again, that type of email could link to a blog post or a video testimonial, something of that nature. But stories of impact, it's going to be great for your engagement with your donors. You, of course, are going to want to let your donors know that there are many ways to get involved in your cause. One of them is attending your events, whether they be in person or virtual, as most events are now. You'll want to send regular announcements about upcoming events and how people can get involved. Don't bury your event announcements, in one little section of a monthly newsletter. If you have an event, send an email specifically focused on that and only that. Let's look at a couple of examples. First up, the Ronald McDonald House in Central Florida. They sent this event announcement about an online trivia game. This has been a very popular virtual event during the pandemic. I love the clear register today button. Just a very simple event. It's going to explain how it's going to work and gives you a little bit about it. They even link to their sponsors here. Another example, the Humane Society in Memphis. They had a virtual 5K. So they sent this simple email with an invitation to come to the event and a simple register button. They also list out their sponsors here. Simple, straightforward. You do not have to get complicated with your emails. These type of event announcements, the same concept behind these emails also applies to other type of get involved type emails you might send out. Maybe if you're soliciting volunteers, board members, that type of thing. Any type of engagement that you want to offer to those on your email list. You're sending a simple announcement with a call to action to come online and fulfill that call in some way. A few times a year, you should be asking donors and others in your audience for feedback. The call to action in these is typically to click a button or a link to complete an online survey. You can certainly use a tool like SurveyMonkey to track the responses, and you can send different types of surveys to different audiences. You might ask your donors why they give to you. You might ask subscribers what communications they are most interested in. You might ask volunteers if they maybe have all the resources that they need. One type of survey that I really love, it's used in the business world all the time. I wish nonprofits used it more because you can kind of identify issues that are out there. It's called a Net Promoter Score, NPS. This is where you kind of gauge the overall health of your nonprofit by asking your supporters to rate your cause on a 1 to 10 scale as to whether they would recommend it to a friend. Would they want their friend to be a donor or a volunteer? The bottom line here is asking for feedback shows your subscribers that you value their input, that you want them engaged in what you're doing. This email here you're looking at on screen, this is an email that I get every year from the Wildlife Conservation Society asking me to complete their annual donor survey. They basically said they need my help to succeed. They need my input. I absolutely love that. Now, how can your subscribers get engaged in your cause if they don't understand what you do? You'll want to send them educational content. The calls to action in this type of email might be to watch a video on your work or read a blog post about maybe the latest research in your area of expertise. I'll show an example from the Australian Wildlife Conservancy. This comes once a month or so to me, and it's called Updates from the Field. It includes tons of educational content to help me understand their important work, with various links and things with more kind of research and details. If I want to click into that, I certainly can. There's a lot of good content here to help me understand what they're all about. You see here they also add sort of a passive, very passive, kind of donate now button here. this is not what I would consider a fundraising email. This is strictly for education and engagement, things for donor retention. But I don't think there's no issues with maybe at the bottom of some of these emails just adding a very passive donate button. That's perfectly all right. I do want to include an example of a good kind of multi-purpose monthly email newsletter, because I know many nonprofits, that's kind of where they lean. For this type of email to garner engagement, it's going to have to be very clear in its design, very clear headers, very clear calls to action. It should touch on all these kind of donor retention areas that we've covered. It should not be focused on fundraising. My favorite example would be the monthly newsletter I get from Birds Caribbean. It's very easy to read with actions that I can take under each section. So it's got image, headline, call to action. It's very simple, single column, easy to read. It's attractive. It's got lots of different things in here, from education to ways to get involved, that kind of stuff here. So this is a good one. Most monthly newsletters that I get are not good. They're too crowded. They're too column. You can't find where you're supposed to click. So if you're going to use this type of email, make sure that it's just very clean and organized, because you're going to have a lot of different calls to action in here, and you want to get as much engagement as you possibly can. Again, the more focused you are with your emails on a single thing, the better you'll do. Now, you probably have other ideas and other types of emails that you're thinking about sending throughout the year. Those probably are great too. The main idea is that you want to keep your subscribers, donors, and other constituents connected to your cause, feeling great about what you do and that you appreciate their support. So let's delve into the design of the emails themselves to discuss a few more tips and tricks for better engagement. Hopefully you've been seeing these items in the examples that I've gone over so far. So you want supporters to open your emails. It all starts with an enticing subject line. 35% of people decide whether or not an email is worth their time based purely on the subject line. You want your subject line to inspire, intrigue, create urgency, and most of all, encourage action. So start with action-oriented verbs like donate, help, give, change, words that let the subscriber know that their action is needed. And that action is going to start by opening your email. You might intrigue your reader with a short question in your subject line, or something that makes you want to open the email to find out more. What's inside here? One of my favorite subject lines I just found simply intriguing. It was titled "Let It Snow." And it was an update from the wildlife group on the plight of snow leopards. In general, be direct with your subject lines. Don't try and trick the person into opening the email. If you're asking for donations, the subject line should reflect that, for example. Your supporters might be busy when they get your email, so you want to try to create urgency. You typically can do that with deadlines. A subject line like 6 hours left to double your donation. Something like that creates urgency to open the email, to give now versus later. Understand there are no magic words that are going to get someone to open your email every single time. You've got to experiment and see what works best for your audience. Jumping ahead there. Many email systems like MailChimp or Constant Contact make it easy to test different subject lines. It's called A/B testing. This will help you see what garners more opens. You also can test these mini headlines of yours at different sites like CoSchedule with their email subject line tester, or this headline analyzer from the Advanced Marketing Institute. If you want to check kind of the emotional content of your subject lines, there's lots of tools out there. I mean, certainly if you Google kind of fundraising, subject lines, that kind of stuff, you're going to find a lot of ideas and a lot of resources. In the chat window, I'm going to drop a link to a really good article on this subject by one of my favorite folks. Certainly bookmark that so that you can check that out later. Next thing is personalization and segmentation. I mentioned before, if you can, get the names of your subscribers. This allows you to personalize your emails. You can address the subscriber by name in the email. I'm more likely to read an email and take action on it if I see it was meant for me personally. Personalization can also apply to the subject line. That's a big trend now, is including the name of the person, the first name, in the subject line as well. According to research from Experian, emails that include some type of personalization get a 27% higher open rate and 11% higher click-through rate. And personalization is not just about names. It can be any attribute of your supporter: past giving, event attendance, special dates like their birth date. You might note in the email how they attended a particular previous event and you'd like them to come to this year's event. And personalization goes hand in hand with segmentation. Segmentation is when you're sending different emails or content to different portions or segments of your list. An email to volunteers might be different than one you send monthly givers, for example. Again, the more an email pertains to me and my interests, the more likely I am to open it, read it, and click on your links. Tagging or grouping your subscribers in your list is one way to accomplish segmentation. So if your donor database is connected to your email platform, you might have it send over or update your folks in your list with custom tags that help you group folks or tag them, put them into a different category in your list. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. I've applied some tags from kind of a dummy account that I have in our platform for a good cause and pushed that through a sync we have over to MailChimp. So that should say volunteer. I've labeled Joan as a volunteer. Volunteer is supposed to be there. So when I send emails through MailChimp, when I create a campaign, then I can decide who I'm going to send it to. And I can segment on that particular tag. So if I say who I'm going to send it to, then I can filter on a particular tag. And I've got maybe volunteers or board members, whoever I've labeled, and I can send broadcast email to that one particular segment. It's not hard. It's really just about working with your data and putting people into groups. The more you do that, the more folks are going to get the right emails that are right to them. That all is going to lead to better engagement for you. Our next tip is to humanize your organization through your emails. So instead of sending emails from a generic info at or fundraising at or heaven forbid a do not reply at email address, you need to send your emails from a real person, from a real email address. You can configure the person and the address your broadcast communications from. You can configure that in virtually any email marketing platform. So even though they're coming from more of a marketing system, they're going to look like they come from a real person. So send them from your director or whoever is relevant to that type of email that's going out. I'm more likely to click on a call to action if I'm being asked to do that by a real person, someone that I have a connection or relationship with. I'm more likely to open the email if I see it's from a real person. One of my favorite examples of this has been during the pandemic. And this is an email from the executive director of the Lansu Chinese Garden. It's a wonderful place to visit in Portland. She has been sending a very personal, heartfelt letter on the state of the garden during COVID-19. She's letting you know how, shutting down has affected their community, their employees, their patrons, and she's keeping you up to date on their path to safely reopen. You can feel the personal nature of the emails and are compelled to do what you can to help. It's a great example. Now, one of the major pieces to engagement is the clicks, getting people to click out of that email to go do something for you. Clicking that hyperlink to donate, to join the board, to apply to be a volunteer, all of that. You need to make this as easy as possible, as clear as possible. Too many emails just plain make it hard to know where to click, or the links are buried, in verbose copy, all of that. The design of the email should encourage clicks by making it just easy to know where to click, making it easy to find buttons, or creating white space around a hyperlink, maybe putting it on its own line. The link or the button itself should use action language that represents the call to action. So instead of a link saying click here, which doesn't really have any meaning to it, it should say donate, or volunteer, or watch our video, or tell us what you think. Use verbs everywhere you can on that. You also should be making it clearer by limiting your calls to action. That's what I'm talking about before, about not having a million links, a million things to do in your emails. If you keep them very focused, then you're more likely to get that one thing clicked. So if you're sending out a fundraising email, don't also include a link to volunteer. Let's go back and take another peek at that welcome email from Vitamin Angels. It's just a plain good example. Where am I going to click to read Jacqueline's story? It's right there on that yellow button. It's using an action verb, read. There's a lot of white space around this. It's a very simple email. I know exactly where I'm supposed to click. That's the type of design and layout that you need in your emails to get clicks. Okay, so let's take these tips and tricks that we've been looking at and let's apply it to the email that you're going to send probably more than any other this year, and that's the fundraising email. These are emails specifically to solicit online donations. They have a single focus again. This is not just adding the donate button to the end of some other email that you're sending out. So the first thing we need them to do is open up that email, open up the fundraising email. This starts with that compelling and urgent subject line. Here's a few examples from a link that I'm going to drop into the chat window for you. This is a blog post that has about 300 examples on it of great subject lines from some end of the year fundraising. This is also, these examples you see here are from end of the year fundraising. These all kind of create urgency. They're very action oriented. You see we also have some personalization here in this one by using Steve's name, kind of calling Steve out. Hey Steve, it's just hours remaining here. We need your help. Again, if you Google fundraising email subject lines, you can find a ton of ideas to adapt. Just hold true for these fundraising emails to what we talked about before: urgency, Make it intriguing, compelling, typically short. You typically don't need a very verbose subject line. Enough to get your point across that it's important that they open your email. Now you've gotten them to open the email. Now we need them to be able to read it and be able to read it on any device. So we're going back to what we talked about before about a simple design and especially a mobile-friendly design. 46% of email is opened on mobile devices. So you best make sure your email looks good on a mobile device. Have you ever had to pinch and zoom to read an email or a website on a mobile device? It is pretty frustrating. The simpler you keep your email, the better chance it has to get delivered. Because the more you complicate it, the more images, the more behind the scene design elements, it often can find its way to spam. The simpler you make it, the better chance it'll get read. People are busy. So you should send an email that's mostly text, maybe with a single image that represents the work that you do or the point that you're trying to get across in your fundraising email. You should format it in a simple single column, mobile-friendly design. I also like plain text emails if you want to experiment with those. I think those are have some benefit too as well. They got great deliverability on those. Just be sure that when you send out your email that you've tested it on a mobile device before it goes out. Look at some examples here. This is one of my favorite organizations, the David Brower Center, an environmental group in California. This is very typical of the fundraising emails that they send out. So it's typically logo, single picture, a simple kind of copy there to make you understand why a gift is needed, and a simple button call to action. Simple, straightforward. This looks good on a mobile device. It's a single column. It grows and squishes as it needs to based on the device that you have. Very simple and straightforward. You're probably hearing me say the word simple over and over again. As they begin to read your message, let's talk a little bit about what's in that copy section. Before maybe the header and before the donate button at the bottom. What types of copy are you putting in there? You want the reader to be compelled to make a gift to you. And with that in mind, I recommend you employ emotional storytelling. There's two sides to this here. One, you're telling the story of impact. So a story of someone or something you've helped or will help with the donor's support. The second part is that emotional part. So you want to tug at the donor's heartstrings to entice the gift. I love this example from the Humane Society in Memphis. They really have an interesting, method for doing their email fundraising. For each animal that comes in the shelter, they write up a story about that animal. That story goes into an email solicitation asking donors to support that email's journey to recovery. They even build a special donation page for each animal so that they can track the success of that particular campaign. Now, employing emotional storytelling does not mean that it's always sad stories like this one. You also can be telling happy stories about the positive impact that you've made on your community. Your goal is just to connect emotionally with the subscriber, create that emotional connection between what you want to do with the money and how the donor can help you get there. And don't be afraid to talk about money. Not that you need it to stay in business. Donors are not always moved by that. But instead show how a donation of a certain size will impact your cause. Where will the money go? How exactly will it help? An example from the Girl Scout Council in Dallas. There it is. They do a good job here of outlining different monetary levels and what that means to the impact that it's going to have on the scouts. This is where you'll click to make your donation. They have a video that you can watch. There's only really one mistake, or what I don't like in this particular email, is they added a second call to action about volunteering and all this type of stuff. So this part here on the monetary values, I love that. If you can communicate that if you give me X dollars, this is exactly where it's going to go and the impact that it's going to have, you probably have got a winning fundraising email. And as I hope you've seen in all the examples that I've shown, it's the final piece in the email is about having a single clear call to action. We want them to click, right? We need them to do something for you. Your fundraising email should have a single place to click, a donate button. A button is better than a link. If you make it a link, that's fine, as long as you've got that white space around it, but a button's going to draw more attention. Make sure that that button link goes directly to a donation page, not to your website homepage or somewhere else where I'm going to have to search to figure out where to give my online gift. We saw that, just in the David Brower, fundraising email that I just showed, as an example of good design. They just had that one donate button really clear. What you're looking at now, this is an example here on the right of an email from Charity Water. So they're emailing asking for donations in honor of loved ones, and they've got this big black simple button that tells you exactly where to click to start your online donation. The more clear, simple that you can make this, the better. The final step to this whole process, this is about, you got to get that call to action fulfilled. In this case, the donor is going to click the donate button. They're going to take themselves somewhere where they can give online. And if we remember from some of the stats here at the beginning of this presentation, online donation, getting someone to fill that out is really hard work. Most of the time, donors move on to something else. They abandon their gift. They're just window shopping. Your email is not the final piece to convincing the donor that they have to give. To get more conversions, you need to continue the story from the email onto your donation page. Build on the impact story that you wrote about in the email. You're going to connect those two things together by, on the donation page, you're going to have a nice headline, you're going to have an introduction, kind of a supporting appeal, images that tie back into the email that you send. You want to make the donor, be reminded of why they clicked donate in the first place, why they got here, and that you really need them to fill this page out. You're going to want to brand the donation page with your look, your colors, your logo, all your branding. This is going to pay off for you. Custom branded donation pages are shown to raise 6 times more money than non-branded pages. One of my favorite examples is here, what you see on screen. This is a page from the Foothills Animal Shelter in Colorado. They built this page to match a marketing campaign that they had around the dog Scooter. So it just carries forward all the marketing that they're doing on email, social media, everywhere else that they're doing it, all into the donation process. That's what it's going to help convert the gift for you. And in addition to kind of carrying forward that story, you've got to make sure that the page is absolutely easy to use. It's mobile friendly. I'm going to drop a resource for you in the chat window. This is a PDF that you can download. It's our donation page checklist. So you can see if your donation page is user friendly. Are you making it easy for donors to give? Now, what I've been going over can't really be accomplished in Gmail or Outlook. You're going to need some technology to help you manage all this. You're going to need to use an email marketing platform, a software tool that helps you collect emails, manage your lists and emails, and track your engagement. Here are 4 tools I like: MailChimp, Constant Contact, Emma, and Campaign Monitor. I've used both MailChimp and Campaign Monitor. They're both fantastic. All of these will allow you to do all the things that we've covered. Each typically charge a monthly fee based on the size of your list or how many emails you send in a month. So that email marketing platform will help you organize your subscribers and their emails, but you also really need to organize your own team, organize your email marketing plans. That's where this little free email marketing calendar template that we're going to give you, that's where this can help. So you can use this template as a guide to set your email marketing calendar. Use it to track send dates, who's going to own each particular campaign, what's the call to action going to be, what's the subject line going to be, what's the lead story that you're going to place in these emails. Use it to organize campaigns across months, quarters, throughout the year. It basically just shows you a structure that you can apply to any spreadsheet to help you plan out when, how, and to whom you'll be sending your emails. You can see some of the headers here. They're going to be in this document. You can really see, assign your emails to different people, set different calls to action. Maybe you're going to send it to different types of donors, whether it's lapsed donors or then to everybody, or maybe just monthly givers, and maybe just volunteers. Again, segment, take that 50 message concept or that once a week and spread that around to all the different folks that you work with. Make sure that you're taking advantage of all the tools in the email marketing platforms to track how well your emails are performing, how good your email engagement is. If you know how well you're doing, you can experiment with new ideas and try to improve. The stats that you see here, this is exactly what we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. Opens, clicks, subscribes, unsubscribes, compare the results that you get back to those national benchmarks. This little graph, this is kind of a sample from Campaign Monitor, a tool that I've used. You can see all your stats here, how many opens. You can drill into who's clicked the link, who's opened it, who actually subscribed. All that data you should be getting and analyzing in your email marketing platform. And don't forget about tracking that final step in the process. What happens after they click? Did they actually fulfill your call to action? So like on a fundraising email, how much money did I raise on that particular email that I sent out? On a retention email, how many website visits did I get to a blog post, for example? You should be, so let's talk about that fundraising. So on your fundraising, I recommend building a donation page specifically for that email that you're sending out. So you should be working with a fundraising platform that makes donation page creation unlimited, easy, and allows you to see the revenue generated for that one particular campaign. For the website visits, you can use tools in your email marketing platform to add what is called UTM parameters to your links. This is where you add things onto the end of the URLs that are in your emails to make them unique and trackable in analytic tools like Google Analytics, where you can monitor all your visits to your website or your fundraising pages. You can't improve if you don't know how well you're doing. That's what we want to have happen for you, is for you to continuously experiment with what you're doing and try to improve. Okay, now comes the home portion of our webinar, even though most of us are probably you're probably watching from home during these times. And yes, I'm giving out homework. I can hear my kids groan as I say that. I want you to go out and find 10 nonprofits that you really, really admire, and I want you to subscribe to their email updates. Use this as a source of ideas. See how they welcome you. See what types of email they send you. See how they use email for fundraising. See how often that they send you email. Analyze what they send you. Be critical. How could each of the emails you receive be better? Take the ideas that we went over today, combine them with these things, the samples and things that you're receiving, and try to get more engagement out of the emails that you send. Thank you for sticking around to this point. I'm going to drop some final resources into the chat area for you to download. This does include our email marketing calendar template. We'd love any feedback you have on this template. Let us know how it works for you. I also am going to drop some links, one to a wonderful resource for email examples, for profit and nonprofit, reallygoodemails.com. And I'm going to link you to some example emails that I've saved during the pandemic. Great examples of both fundraising communications and just crisis communications. And again, if you didn't catch anything that I've dropped in the chat window, no problem. I'm going to send out all links to all of this with the replay video. Look for that probably in 2-3 days, maybe early next week. So again, I really appreciate you taking time to watch this. I appreciate what you do as a nonprofit professional. I know you are busy, so it means a lot to me to have you attend this webinar. I'm going to leave the session open just a few more moments to give you an opportunity to post any final questions you have in the chat window. If I have not responded yet, I will follow up with any questions that I don't get to. And this is my contact information here that you see on screen, so feel free to reach out with any question, especially if you're watching this on demand later and you just have a question. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer anything that you have. And again, look for an email from me in the next few days. Add ronald.pruitt@forgoodcause.com to your friends list, and that'll make sure that gets through to you. Thanks again, and I will talk to you soon.